Welcome to the Fore podcast.
Player who's really good.
The basketball. Oh, that kid is so good.
Pretty sure we would beat him.
Yeah, I think we would beat the kid, but that kid is insane. What was his name?
I don't know, but if it was you and me like versus him at the same time, we would win almost for sure.
Well, yeah, because he's like 9 years old. I think we would beat him. So it is.
Yeah.
I found it on TikTok at add1buckets, ADD1 buckets, just like it sounds. And it's this kid playing basketball that I saw online and I had to share with Dave and Jeremiah and Sean and Cassie. And that kid's good. But you think you could beat him?
Yeah. You and I could beat him. If it was 2-on-1 and we had some practice, then I'm pretty sure we could take him.
I don't think I would need the practice, Dave. I think I could just go in ready to go. My arms are so long that he would try to dribble around me, and he would probably juke me out for the first like 2 times, and then like I would stumble and then get up, and then he would do it again, and everyone would be laughing. But then I think I would lock him up the rest of the game. I'd be like, "Oh, you're that fast. I'm gonna lock you up."
Okay, so you're proud of that you'd beat a kid?
Well, yeah. I mean, when you put it like that, beat a kid. I don't set out every day to beat a kid, but if
not,
I were
not
going
every day, the authorities would catch on eventually.
Yeah, if I were going to defeat a 9-year-old in basketball, then I would do it because I'm sure he would want to beat me and kick my butt because he seems super competitive, right?
Yeah. Did I tell you about the time I got dunked on by a kid? I think
No.
I told you that one.
No.
Yeah, we rented this big house for our guys' disc golf weekend, and it had an outdoor basketball court. We're just hanging out, and this group of kids walked down the street right onto the property, started bouncing the ball right in the court, and they were like, "Hey, fellas, what's up?" And we're like, "Hey." And they said, "The owner said that we can play anytime we want here as long as it's okay with you guys." We said, "Sure. Yeah, you can play." And they said, "Hey, can you help us adjust the rim?" They were like, "Hold it right here." And I went up to like hold, and I had my back turned. The kid came out from behind and just dunked on me, hung from the rim, and like thrust his, wrapped his legs and kicked me. And everyone was like, "Oh!" And I was like, "This kid betrayed me." I let him like use our court. He's asking me to adjust the basket height for him, and he dunks on me from behind. That was.
You've told me that story, but I just wanted you to tell me again.
Yeah, it was pretty funny though.
Yeah, it still is. It's a good one. It's a really good one. It's one of those things where I don't mind being the butt of a joke. I'll do something silly. I might fall down on purpose just because I want to make somebody laugh. These kids, they just want to laugh, right? Somebody might take it the wrong way. They're gonna do it to somebody who's gonna take it the wrong way. But
they got a kick out of it, so I guess it was worth it. And my buddies enjoyed giving me a hard time, and I was like, it's not like we weren't even playing. I was just helping them. But that's like in school, you always got to be careful walking through a doorway. I don't know if that happened in your school, but if you're walking through a doorway, you got to watch out for someone jumping and hanging from the header of the door. They just jump and hang from it. Yeah, you got to watch out for that.
Yeah, we wouldn't do that. We did more of always put our hands below our knees or below our waist in the circle, right? Yeah, exactly. And so if you look down at that, then if the person looks down, if I make you look down there, then I get to punch you in the arm or something, or you give me like $15, something like that.
Yeah, that symbol has become something else now, surprisingly. I just knew it as hey, if you look at this, you get punched in the arm, and if you stick your finger in it, you get to hit them. But now it means something else.
Well, if you look at it, right? If you look at sixes, maybe I should go like that. So it's 1 6 right there, 2 6s, and 3 6s. So however whatever 666 means to you, then that's something that could be one thing that could inform how you feel about what that symbol means. But it also isn't it for carbon? Aren't there 6 molecules, carbon molecules in carbon, and for something like that?
I heard that it was a white power symbol or something like that.
I thought that was the white power symbol. I thought that was the when you thumbs up it. This one when you go like that, that's A-okay.
This is A-okay. And then I don't know and if anybody's watching this, if you guys can shed some light on what hand symbols you can't do anymore, let us know.
Yeah, let us know. Well, hey, Dave, you know what we haven't done for everybody yet? We have not welcomed everybody, every one of you out there to the Fore podcast. Thanks for tuning in. So this is Dave, one of the hosts. I'm Alex, one of the other hosts. We got Jeremiah and Sean. And Dave, what do we do here? We talk about different things every week, right?
We talk about something different every time. unless it's a story about me getting dunked on, then we tell that story multiple times. We'll talk about fantasy football, real football. We'll talk about disc golf, golf, comedy, current events, movies, entertainment, you name it. We're going to talk about it.
Tampons?
Sure. Why not?
That'd be weird, Dave. I don't use tampons. I'm not going to talk about tampons. So it's probably not everything that you could think of, but we just talked about it. So who knows, right? I guess, yeah, anything that somebody might talk about on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon. Dave, let's talk about a little fantasy football tonight because there are a lot of games that happened. It's week 15 of the NFL. It's Sunday, December 17th, about 9:44 Eastern Standard Time. And what happened to you? I can tell already, probably going to lose the playoffs, but that's just like 1 year leagues, right?
This has been like the worst year of fantasy football for me. I'm probably going to get bounced out of the playoffs in my dynasty league, and that's a bummer. And I was the highest scoring team, and I set the record for the most points in a particular week, and all of my guys just disappeared on me this week. So defensive position wise, every single one of my guys underperformed. So it's gonna be hard to come back from that. But I'm still in it. I'm I think like a 30% underdog right now. We still got a couple games to go. So we'll see what happens. But I'm facing that seasonal fantasy depression right now, where you just kind of sense the season slipping away a little bit, and there's really nothing you can do. So it is what it is. We'll see what happens. If Lamar Jackson and Isaiah Likely can link up for like 3 or 4 more touchdowns, I'd feel pretty good.
What if you could go to the doctor and get that clinically and diagnosed as seasonal football depression? And then you like, and it hung over you, and people would be like, "Are you okay?" You're like, "No, the doctor just diagnosed me with SFD."
You could maybe miss work for it.
Yeah, right.
Like, I'm taking a mental health day. I guess I don't ask you what it is that you're taking a mental health day for, but if you're out there listening or watching this and you're on the cusp of losing your playoff game and all your hard work for the season is going down the drain right now and you're pretty depressed, then I can
Then go to your
sympathize with
doctor.
you. I can sympathize with you here.
Yeah, well, Dave, I think we need to do more than that. Just that. I mean, I'm sure that our ones and twos of fans out there, they appreciate our sympathizing. If we can give them some kind of tangible advice and they can go to the doctor for it and then they get cured for it, then we're really helping people out here.
You know what? So all joking aside, maybe I got one tip for the moms right here is in the playoffs, don't get cute. Just play the players that got you to where you are. Don't overthink it. Don't start thinking about sitting your
Play your
studs.
studs. Play your
Play
studs.
play your studs. It's a common refrain in the show and anywhere really is that you never sit a stud. And with your guys that got you to the playoffs, you want to just keep them in. Like the worst thing you can do is tinker or over meddle too much, and then you'll have that regret where I should have left that guy in, but I got cute. I overthought it, and now I'm gonna regret it. So play the guys that got you there.
Well, okay, so I think there's some psychology that we kind of have to dig into right there, right? Because if you play the players that you always played and they don't put up the points that you need them to put up, then you can be frustrated and just say, you know what, it wasn't their week. But if you mix up your lineup and you play somebody else because you see that they have a better matchup against somebody else, then you make that move and they don't put up the points for you, then you're really angry with yourself and you're saying, why did I mess that up? As opposed to it was just unlucky. And so I think it really messes with your psyche a bit more.
I don't think anyone's going to regret playing the players that got them to where they are. The players that got them to where they are. There's a reason you got there with those players. They've been a consistent performer. So barring any crazy, like terrible matchup or injury, put those studs in. It's almost, we get to playoff time, you do start to overthink it. You start thinking, well, yeah, they've been doing great, but I got this other guy on my bench, and he might have a better matchup. And if I don't play him, then I'll never know. It's like, no, coming from experience, play the guys that got you there. That's all I can say.
Yeah, for sure. That's really what you have to do. So, Dave, I mean, I want to talk about the Four Bernie's fantasy league, football fantasy league, but I don't want to just steal the dance floor. I think you got some moves that you're gonna do out there on the dance floor, right?
Well, we can talk about the Four Birdies League and how you're doing pretty well in it right now. You're going to go
No,
on
no,
to
I
the
want to save that till
championship
later, Dave. We
next
don't talk
week.
about it right now. No, no, no.
Yeah.
Dave, you
So
tell me, Dave, tell me about your most agonizing situation right now.
I think tonight, in honor of realizing the season's going to be over, and this not just for me, but probably for a lot of people, I want to talk about the top 4 players that killed your chances at making the playoffs, or the top 4 players that ruined your season.
And your life.
I wouldn't go that far, but yeah, I mean, for some
You
people, this might really affect their life. Yeah.
you just got diagnosed with some fake condition, and you say your life isn't ruined, but well, you haven't been. I'm diagnosing you, Dr. Al over here, but you
Yeah.
have to go to the
No,
doctor
I'm
more, which
I'm I'm pretty bummed because here's the thing. I'm second guessing some of the roster moves I've made. I put the guys in that got me there, and it's not quite working out. But you can't know that. You can't look back and say, "Well, I could have done this." And it's like, there's a guy that's been on your bench for 15 weeks or 14 weeks, and you've never started him, and then now all of a sudden you didn't put him in, and he had a good game. You can't hold yourself accountable for something like that. There's no way you would have known that. So
no.
I'm sticking with you. Got to play the studs that got you there. So,
So
but I do
so
want to talk about the top 4 players that ruined your life. I mean, the top 4 players that ruined your season.
okay, let's go. So do you want to start at 4? Or do you want to start at 1? And give me the context. Which league is it, and why does it matter so much? And do you want to do 1 or 4?
This isn't just going to apply to me. This is going to be, if you have these guys, on your team, you either spent a significant draft capital to get them or you traded for them and you had to have given up a lot for them. These are guys that you'd have high hopes, high expectations for. And based on how they perform this season, there's almost no way you made the playoffs.
I love
So
it, Dave. I love
this
it. You did some homework here. I love it.
these 4 players are gonna speak to many tens
20s
of
of
people,
listeners, sorry.
hundreds of millions of people, actually, really, if you think about it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how many people are gonna watch it, but if you have one of these players, you probably miss the playoffs, and you're probably kicking yourself for drafting them. So we're gonna start with number 4. So at number 4 is a quarterback who been in the league several years now, has great weapons, should have had a great offense. You're expecting him to be a top fantasy quarterback.
Geno Smith. No.
Good guess. You're close. So I'm talking about quarterback of the Los Angeles Chargers, Justin Herbert.
Mm.
So should be a top 5 quarterback at this point. This has been a pretty disappointing season for him. He is going to finish probably top 11 to top 14, depending on how everyone else finishes, because he is on IR right now, but he's been so inconsistent this year. Those inconsistencies probably cost you a ton of games. So I'm just going to kind of give you the rundown here on why I think he's number 4. You probably drafted him in the 5th, 6th round. Okay. Maybe a little bit later if you got lucky, but I would imagine you had high hopes for him. And if you drafted him, he's probably your first quarterback, right? You don't have anybody better than him that you can use as a backup. Week 7, 12 points. You probably
Cool.
lost that week.
Cool.
Week 9, 7 points.
Cool. 7 points.
And you can probably just edit out all the times I look down.
I'm not going to edit. Dave, we don't edit anything around here.
Thanks.
You're
Week 12, 15 points.
15
This is
points.
not somebody that is getting it done. If you're expecting decent amount of points from your QB1 in Justin Herbert, he let you down.
Now, in all fairness, he did have a broken middle finger on his left hand, correct?
He did have the broken finger or the finger injury on his non-throwing hand that he was
Mhm.
struggling through. Injuries aside, it doesn't matter. He let you down, all right? He's not
That's
gonna get a
true.
pass
People
because
sleep
he
for
had a
that kind of
boo-boo.
stuff. Yeah.
Week 13, 8 points. These are all like every week matters. With your quarterback having single-digit points this many times, it's really hard to come back from. Week 14, 2 points. He got knocked out of that game, and then after that, he's done for the season. But what
2
I'm saying
point
right
a
now is
cheeseburger.
if you had Herbert, you probably didn't get very far in the fantasy season. That's my guess. Whether it was injuries or whatever, poor coaching, I'm hoping he bounces back next year. Keenan Allen had a great year. He was a huge stud. Now, in Herbert's defense, he did lose Mike Williams early in the season.
But they had Johnson. Didn't they have Johnson, the rookie receiver? He's supposed to be really good. Wasn't he like one of the top drafted wide receivers in the draft?
Quentin Johnson took forever to get going. So I think
To get going, he's not going. He had
he's
that
still
drop
not
pass
he's
like 2 weeks
he's
ago, and
still
they
he's
lost the
still
game.
not
It was the
going.
go-ahead touchdown. He
He's
didn't
still
catch
not
it.
going. In rookie drafts, Johnson was probably a first round pick as a wide receiver, and he's probably like the worst performing wide receiver out of the group, out of that draft class.
He is. Yeah, I saw the stats on him recently. There are about 11 players drafted after him, and they're all performing better than he is. Yeah,
Yep.
that's not
I
good. Q Johnson. There was, I think, I thought I remember seeing the clip where he realized that he was getting drafted, and then he's like, "Mama, quit the job, Mama." And then, like, of course she could still quit her job, of course. But if he's not going to perform like that, the minimum rookie contract that he's going to get isn't going to carry him over for any kind of like lavish or nice lifestyle that you want to live.
I think he's gonna be okay. Most rookies don't do well first year, and especially not wide receivers. But this year has been this is an exception and not the rule. So the fact that he's like the worst rookie wide receiver, he's
Anyway,
still young. There's still time.
I
But
I put us on a tangent. We went down tangent highway there, Dave.
Herbert's still number 4 as top 4 worst players who screwed your whole season,
Yeah,
okay? So, I
and
hope
your
you
life.
guys hope you guys can see why. Number 3 on this list, it's gonna kinda be familiar here because we just talked about his teammate, but I'm talking about Los Angeles Chargers running back, Austin Eckler.
Ooh,
And if you had him on your team, he was a first round pick, right? So, based on how he's performing, there's almost no way you made the playoffs, and if you did, you barely squeaked by, and then he probably screwed you up in the playoffs, which will be another video here. But this is one of the first years I had Austin Eckler. I was never fortunate enough to have him on a team, and I said I'm going to prioritize him. I got him in the late first round. I was super happy. Very first week, he scored 26 points. I said this is going to be great. He's a cheat code, and he got hurt that game. Missed the next 4 games. Okay, I can handle that. It's all right. You miss a few games, you can still, when they come back, catch up. And if he gets back, returns to form, you're going to be fine. But he didn't. All right. So he had numerous games with low single digit points. And from your first round pick, that just simply can't happen. And the biggest problem with Austin Eckler is that he's a must start every single week.
of course.
So no one
You
really,
can't see your studs, right?
you can't. You can't. That's why it's so frustrating to have him this year because you're not gonna bench him, because by the time you figure it out, he's a dud this season, it's too late. So, had just enough, like he had a couple really good games that suckered you into letting him stay in the starting lineup. I wish he woulda just totally been terrible right off the bat,
Of
and
course,
then,
yeah.
because
Or
I lost so many matchups because I put him in and he got me 7 points. So I'm gonna give you the rundown of, like, some of the week's performances that he had,
oh,
which
I
is not
can't wait.
very Austin Eckler-esque, okay? This
Yeah.
is just unheard of for
And
a
what's
guy.
give me what, one or two of the projected, because I imagine he's projected around 18 points a week is my guess.
Typically projected between like 15 at the absolute minimum to 25 points a week.
Wow.
He was
Yeah.
supposed to be a top 5 running back. He's going to finish probably outside the top 25.
Good
And
God.
the sad thing is his role has been reduced towards the end of the season. So I don't know what's going to happen to him. I really like him as a player. I hope he does well. They had the contract disputes. I don't know if he's going to be a Charger next year, or if it was the injuries, or he just hit a wall, or if he's getting old, or he's falling
Yeah,
off a
that'll depend on
cliff.
the coaching situation and how that all shakes out. Well,
I
give me some of those numbers, Dave.
Let me just say, I think they're gonna clean house. I don't think he's gonna be a Charger next year, and I worry that, he's not gonna be able to find another team because not many other teams are gonna wanna sign, I guess, at this point, quote, "an aging running back" coming off of a poor year, which I think is sad because he's had an awesome career. But so week 6 came back from the injury, 10 points.
Cool.
Okay, he's
Yeah.
still getting his legs, he's shaking off the rust, he's healing up. That's okay, 10 points. I can deal with that. Week 7, 5.6 points.
Cool.
That's when you start getting a little concerned, but obviously at that point you can't bench him. And then week 8 against Chicago, 23 points, and you're like, "He's
There you
back,
go.
baby."
That's
Yeah.
what you're waiting for.
Yep, you wait for it, you pretty much nobody benched him a single week except for when he was hurt,
No,
obviously.
and that's why you keep
23
starting
points.
them.
Yeah, and then this is a thing that really hurts. Week 9 against the Jets, 21 points, and you're like, "Okay,
There you
nice.
go.
Nice, I
Yeah.
needed that." And then the week after that against Detroit, 21.5 points.
There you go.
And you're
3
like,
weeks
"I
in a
got
row,
him."
right?
Yeah, and you may be sitting there thinking, "Well, how is he number 3 in the top 4 worst fantasy players that ruined your season and destroyed your morale?"
Go on.
Well, Imma tell you why, because after that, the wheels kinda did fall off. So, week 11 at Green Bay, 7 points. Week
Yeah.
12 at Baltimore, 9.4 points, okay? Pretty much all of these weeks that he scored single digits, you're not winning those matchups. You're
Mm.
piling up the losses, and you're going down the leaderboard more and more, and playoffs are further and further out of reach. New England, 4.7 points.
4.7 points against New England. Their defense has been good. We talked about that the other week. Their defense had been really, really good. But to only get 4.7, now he's everybody's running back one, right? He's got to be.
If you have Eckler on your team, he's most likely your RB1, unless you had like just a crazy draft or you pulled off some trades. He did, kind of salvage the season somewhat by his not by his standards, by just
Standards, some, the most
small
generic.
consolation. Week 14 against Denver, 21 points. But the problem is that suckers you into starting him again, and he followed that performance up with 7.8 points against Denver. So, like I said, if you have Austin Eckler on your team, you probably missed the playoffs. And if you did miss the playoffs, he's going to be in another video possibly of the guys that ruined your playoffs because he just
And
put
your
up
life.
7 points. So depending on what week your playoffs start, he probably bounced you out. And if they don't start till next week, I don't know if anybody's comfortable starting him at this point. He is now officially he's not in the must start category anymore. He's not a stud. And with their quarterback problems and their GM being fired and they don't have a head coach, it's just really hard to trust him in any sort of matchup at this point. So if you have him and you are still in the playoffs, you're probably not very confident about starting him at this point. So yeah, number 3 on our list, Austin Eckler. And it hurts me to say it because I love him as a player and he seems like a great person, but this was like his worst year that I can think of.
It was the year that you got him. I mean, any kind of coincidence? I'm not really sure. Dave, I do wonder if some of this is marked up to bad coaching, right? So Staley and their GM just got let go. And for Herbert to have a pretty bad season, now he had that broken finger on his left hand. That's got to affect somebody, that's going to affect a lot of quarterbacks, I would imagine. You got to be mentally strong to get through that. But then for Eckler as well to also have a bad season, I wonder if a lot of that is influenced by the situation there and the lack of good leadership from the top. Dave, we don't have time to get into this. This isn't a Chargers video. Let's move on to number 2. Who you got number 2 there, buddy?
So number 2 is he's not a player that I personally drafted, but I wanted to draft him because I don't think I've ever had him on a team. Great running back, consistent. He's one of those like underrated guys who's gonna be, I know it's like kind of sounds like an oxymoronic statement, consistently in the top 5 of running backs, especially with overall yards. You had to have spent a first round pick on him. If you drafted him with the first round pick, you probably were kicking yourself after the very first week. And we're talking about Cleveland Browns running back Nicholas Chubb.
Nick Chubb. You've got Nick Chubb at number 2 right now.
Nick Chubb he's a solid number 2 here on the Browns. And if you disagree with it, Alex, you tell me why.
Yeah, if you disagree, I'm going to disagree with it right now. He went out in the first game. He was injured at the very week 1.
Yeah, he ruined your season. You
What do
drafted
you
him in
mean
the
he
first
ruined your
round.
season? If you're going to let the first choice in your league torpedo your season, hey, I got news for you, Dave. I drafted Jamar Chase and I traded him. And the players I traded him for, they're not winning me every week. Garrett Wilson and Najee Harris. Najee gave me like 1.3 points today, and Garrett Wilson gave me like 4. So
Look,
I traded away
Alex,
one of my best players. That's
you can
bullshit,
make,
Dave.
but
I'm
you got something
right
you
there.
got something in return for him. If you drafted Nick Chubb, it devastated you. Okay, and I understand that. Just to be honest, I was torn a little bit. Like, do you put him on the list or not? Well, you have to because of the draft capital. Yeah, you did lose in the very first game. I think somebody that stays in your lineup and underperforms, you could make an argument that they're actually worse. They're worse for your team because they're in there underperforming, whereas Nick Chubb's like it's pulling off a Band-Aid. You lost him immediately, then you got to scramble to find a replacement. The bottom line is you drafted him with the first round pick and you immediately lost him. That's a huge blow. So
But to
that's
put
why
him at number 2, that I don't agree with putting him there. I think you'd have to put him at 3, 4 if he's on the list. I can see what you say. I got somebody in return. That makes sense. I got 2 players in return, and those players did put up some decent numbers for me and help me win. Yes, I can see that. But to put him at number 2, what? Are you drinking again, Dave?
Not tonight. So you're probably really gonna hate the number 1 player that I
I'm gonna
have
hate it
here.
because if you don't have this other player on the list, then I'm gonna drive up north. I'll see you there in T minus 3 hours.
I
But
don't think you're gonna do
let's
that.
stay on the Nick Chubb for a second before you start going insane out here.
Nick Chubb was one of those players that if you drafted him in the first round, he would have been an anchor for your team. He would have gotten you a consistent 15 to 20 points every single week. This was supposed to be his year. He's a stud. I hope he recovers from that knee injury. They're saying that the damage wasn't as bad as you would have thought when you saw the replay. So maybe he can play next year. I don't know, but he is getting up there in age. But he was like primed for like a phenomenal season. I wouldn't call it a breakout season because every single year he's been in the league. He's been playing great. So this was going to be just another productive season for him. And you spent a first round pick and you didn't get anything. So yeah, that's why he's number 2 right now on the list.
That'd be tough. And Sean, our good old friend Sean, he drafted the Chubster first round in our league.
And look
And
where he is now.
look
Look
where
where Sean is.
yeah, he's at the bottom of the ocean swimming with the fishes. But that's how it goes. Hey, apparently he's doing really well in his other league though, so that's cool.
Good for him. Yeah,
Yeah,
if you ask Sean, which player totally tanked your season, Sean, he'd probably say Nick Chubb.
he
So
would. That's
if
true.
you're a Nick Chubb owner, he has to be on this list right now. He
Damn.
just has to be.
Damn, that's crazy. I really, you made a good point. I got 2 players in return, yada, yada, yada. Dave, who do you got at number 1? Everybody's waiting. They probably fast forwarded it already.
This is a tough one. This is also a player that I've never had on a team. I've always wanted to have him, but since his breakout
Season.
he's really tough. You have to spend a lot to get him, and there's so many other choices right there at the spot that you could pick him at. So pretty much perennially, that's a tough word. Perennially a top 3 pick at this point. He's a wide receiver. He catches passes. It's Justin Jefferson. So
Ooh.
if you had Justin Jefferson on your team, you probably are kicking yourself, right? Started out great, mid 20 points every week for the first 3 weeks that he was healthy. And then after that hammy injury, you were without him.
I
And
know
so
somebody who picked him. I know somebody.
oh, who's that?
Oh, it's Steve. Good old Steve.
Yeah, and what happened to Steve?
Steve's
He's
no,
out
I
of
don't
the
even know if he's
playoffs,
in the
out of the
league.
league.
Yeah, he's out of the playoffs, out of the league. He's already in Aruba. So that's what he's doing. Good old Steve. He picked him up and his season completely got torpedoed. And that's the name of the game, Dave. Sometimes you can't help it. That's why they call it fantasy football. It starts with 2 F's. For fuck's sake, That's it, Dave.
I got to make a minor correction here.
Okay.
He played 5 weeks, right?
Yeah.
So the first 4 weeks he played awesome. Week 5 was when he got hurt. He had 5 points. And like I said before, hamstring injuries are notoriously tricky, difficult to predict how long they're going to linger. He went on IR and he came back week 14 and got 4.7 points. So if you had Justin Jefferson on your team, you went through a long period of time without him, unless you were able to like trade him to somebody to get, some production. That's a tip for your mom. Is like if you're going to look at a lengthy absence and you're fighting for your playoff life, you can't afford to sit, and wait for a player on IR to come back. You have to like make a move and get somebody that can get you points so you can stack up some wins, because you start losing 6 in a row, you're not going to make the playoffs. So a lot of owners probably didn't trade him away. They probably hung on to him, and he came back to reward you with 4.7 points. So week 15 points, that's okay, I guess, but that's not something that you'd expect out of the number 1 pick. Because of his draft pedigree, the ADP of a number 1 overall pick, and the fact that he's missed so many games, and he's going to finish outside the top 30, probably 35 wide receivers this year. He's got to be number 1 player that ruined your season, right?
Boo-hoo.
You don't think so?
No, I agree with you. I think it's a good number 1. I'm just saying, as a very proud Detroit Lions fan, just like my name tag says, for a Minnesota Viking to get injured, not any kind of presumption that I want to take upon anybody, for him to get injured and go down and them not do so great because of it. Whatever. I don't, that's good. I think he belongs at
I
number one though, Dave.
I see how it is. Yeah, the fact that he's a Viking,
Yeah. It
I could
just
see
kind of
how you'd be like, good for him. I'm glad that he's out. Yeah, I'm sure Justin Jefferson getting injured so early ruined a lot of people's seasons.
Dave, can I throw out an honorable mention right here?
I can think of like 20 honorable mentions. I'd love to
Okay.
hear your idea. Let's hear it.
Well, I'm gonna throw this one out there. I'm gonna say Bijan Robinson because
You're
today
an idiot. I totally disagree. What a dumb pick for like top 4 worst performers for the season. That's a stupid
no,
pick,
that
Alex.
torpedoed your season.
Nope, nope, that's not Bijan Robinson. Maybe he'll be in the next video for top 4 players who ruined your playoffs. But if you
Okay.
had Bijan Robinson, yeah, he had some up and down games, but for the most part, as a rookie, he did all right. And you probably drafted him in like the late first round pick. He wasn't a top 3 overall pick,
Right.
right?
But he was your first round pick.
He was your first round pick. I don't think he makes the list. Honorable
Well,
mention, honorable mention, maybe. But he's probably not even like top 10
isn't
worst
this
players that
the
screwed your
top
life up.
four players who torpedoed your season? Wouldn't that constitute your playoff season as well?
No, if you had Bijan, you probably made the playoffs.
You probably made the playoffs, but now your season's over because he gave you zero point 0.4 points today. Now that is
Damn. That's why I'm saying he's in the
terrible.
list of top 4 players that
I feel
ruined your
like that's a
playoffs.
teaser. I feel like our clothes are going to start coming off because we're going to start teasing all these things.
They're just different categories. Players that ruined your season and players that ruined your playoffs. We can even do a video players that ruined your championship. So right now, Bijan actually had a pretty decent season. He had a couple games where you're like, man, do I keep starting this guy? And then he followed that up immediately with like 25 points.
Okay, Dave, don't
So
don't give them all the secrets. We'll save it for that video.
I
Okay.
want to hear another honorable mention from you though.
Oh, another honorable mention for me. How about Trevor Lawrence? I think Trevor Lawrence, if he's your first quarterback that you pick in that position, you think that he's going to have a breakout year and that he's going to put up incredible numbers and he might be the top 4 to 5 point performer of each week. He could be in Mahomes territory, he could be in Burrow territory. Speaking of honorable mentions, Burrow's got to be there as well. But for Trevor
Burrow,
Lawrence,
I agree. Yeah, Burrow was an honorable mention. I actually had him initially in my top 4, but I bumped him out. You know, Chubb nudged Burrow out.
yeah. So here's where Trevor Lawrence was. He had 22 points week 1, 9 points week 2, 17, 18, 19, 19, 20 in week 7, 17 in week 8, 4 points in week 10. And then he really breaks out in week 11 against Tennessee. He gets 36 points and then 32, then 29. But he just, as your number one pick of a quarterback, the first couple weeks of the season, those are more like Gardner Minshew numbers right there. And if you need to have a winning quarterback, then you need somebody who's going to put up better numbers than he did at the beginning of the season. So
Yeah.
he did start coming into it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Trevor Lawrence massively underperformed his ADP. You know, he should have been a top 10, quarterback. You're probably not drafting him until at least the 5th, 6th, 7th round and beyond. So based on that,
But he's going to be your QB1.
he's going to be your QB1.
Now, at the beginning of
You
last
could you
year,
could
he might
manage you
not
could
have.
manage those point totals. The reason I had Herbert in there and not Lawrence is Herbert of course is missing the rest of the season.
Sure.
That factored into it. Expectations on Herbert are a lot higher, and he's shown that he's got just as much potential as Lawrence. But I want to say Herbert probably was drafted before Lawrence in most leagues. I can't think of many situations where people are drafting Lawrence before Herbert. Now, next year, it's probably going to be different. But yeah, I think Lawrence is a good honorable mention.
Yeah, and should we throw Burrow in there as well? You
Burrow's
said
in
that,
there for sure. Yep.
yeah, you said that you had him on your list, and just looking at some of the numbers, starts out with a banger with 3 points in week 1, and then 20 points in week 2, 19 in week 3, 4 in week 4 against Tennessee. And then he really gets into a groove of things. In week 5, he gets 32, then 18, then 33, 28, and 27. So those 5 out of 6 games, he's putting up some good numbers that you need to win. But then he gets injured and he's out for the season.
Yeah, based on, the stinkers and the fact that he did end up missing the season, you gotta make him an honorable mention.
Yeah, it might not belong on the list, but definitely an honorable mention. So, but that's it for me, Dave. I think we about touched on all these top 4 players that really torpedoed the season. And got anything else before we hit this popsicle stand with Carr?
Yeah, we don't wanna come across as negative, so we are gonna have a top 4 players that carried your season. We are gonna have,
Okay.
top 4 players that won you your championship.
Oh, yeah, I might be able to relate to that. We'll see. I've got another
Yep.
week, but for all the viewers out there curious, yes, I did win the semifinals, and I'm going into the championship game against Cass Money, my neighbor. My neighbor Cassie. She's a great person. I wish her the best of luck. She's got a pretty good team. We think it's Sean's B team. We're pretty sure that he's making all the moves here because they're way too stacked. I don't know how she must have gotten players out the waivers. She drafted well. I'm not really sure. What do you think, Dave?
I think that's quite the accusation there, but,
Yeah, you better believe it,
I
baby.
gotta be honest, I've thought this before myself is, like, who's really behind the curtain here? Is it
Yeah,
Sean?
who's pulling the strings? Okay, Dave. Well, we better hit the road. If you haven't already, then do like and subscribe. I think we have more videos than subscribers, so let that sink in. Really, think about that. We've got more videos than we have subscribers. It takes some time to do these records and edit all this stuff and put all the cool music to the back of it, all those funky
You're
vibes.
you're adding music to it?
The intro music, the outro music, all that stuff. I gotta beat things out when I say that kind of stuff. So if you haven't already, then do like and subscribe, please. And we'll see you all next time on the Fore Birdies podcast.